in October 1879. The naval campaign of the Saltpeter War comes to an end. The last hopes of Peru fall on Miguel Grau and his crew aboard the monitor Huáscar in their raids. The Huáscar is armed with 2 cannons in a rotating turret with blind spots in its firing range. It has 3 other smaller caliber cannons in the stern and a Gatling gun in the crow's nest. The Chilean squad had the armored twins Cochrane and Blanco Encalada. Both are armed with 6 9-inch cannons in a redoubt that covers all their sides and have Paliser drills. They have another 4 smaller caliber cannons and 2 Nordenfeldt machine guns. They are accompanied by the schooner Covadonga, the corvette O'Higgins, and the transports Loa and Matias Cousinho, arranged in 2 divisions. Grau wrote a letter to his wife on September 30th without knowing that it was the last one. The crew and the Huáscar monitor are captured in the combat on October 8th. The frigate captain Meliton Carvajal narrates the events of the combat from prison.
At dawn, we recognized the Blanco Encalada, Covadonga, and Matias Cousinho. The first separated us by a distance of 6 miles. The White and the Covadonga followed us in hunting. Our machines were at full power. The Huáscar, with its traveling 10 3/4 of a mile, managed to head west and north, being pursued by enemy ships. We saw 3 smokes in the northwest. We recognized the Cochrane, the O'Higgins, and the LOA, wanting to cut our bow. The machine was ordered to be forced to avoid it, gaining away towards the north before being cut off. The Union went from port to starboard, and thanks to its movement, it advanced north. This wasn't the case with the Huáscar. At 9:40, we secured our flag, firing the tower's cannons on the Cochrane at 3,280.8 feet. The Blanco and the Covadonga were coming 6 miles away. The O'Higgins and the Loa headed to cut off the Union. Cochrane narrowed his distance thanks to its greater speed. When he was 656.168 feet to port, he shot. It pierced the hull armor of the tower section a foot above the waterline and exploded inside, killing 12 men. Another of them cut the port guard of the battle tower and forced us to govern with rigging. 10 minutes later, we suffered a serious loss. A projectile pierced the commander's tower, and exploding inside, blew up the Rear Admiral Mr. Grau, who had command of the ship, and left the First Lieutenant Don Diego Ferre dying. The second commander, Elias Aguirre, took command of the ship, and under his orders, the combat continued, more tenacious and sustained. The difficulties of steering the ship didn't allow the Huáscar to maintain a constant direction, so that it only took advantage of part of the movement that it had. Produced the machine. This caused the Blanco and the Covadonga to narrow their distance until they were 656 feet on the starboard quarter. The Huáscar, without the advantage of its speed and trapped between the armored ships, directed its fire on the Blanco and turned to attack it with its ram. This attack was evaded and left us exposed to the good aim of the armored ships and the Covadonga. In these circumstances, when I was next to the right cannon of the tower, I was wounded by the flashes of a bomb that penetrated the tower and exploded inside it, and unable to continue the other circumstances of the combat, I was taken to the section of the machine where I was given the attention that my condition demanded.
The Huáscar fell into enemy hands when it was impossible to continue its resistance. Its cannons were disabled, its rudder broken, and its crew decimated. As a last resort, the valves were completely open to submerge the ship. The enemy vessels arrived at the Huáscar's side. Their crew took possession of the ship. They stopped its immersion when it already had 4 feet of water in its bottom. They extinguished some fires that were still burning. And finally, they took it to Mejillones, not without some difficulties favored by the tranquility of the sea. All the crew members who, wounded, mostly survived, were taken prisoners and transported to the armored ships where they are given the most exquisite consideration and assistance. Allow me to express the deep feeling that the irreparable death of the brave Rear Admiral Don Miguel Grau and his worthy subordinates, Lieutenant Commander Don Elias Aguirre, and First Lieutenants Don Diego Ferrer and Don Meliton Rodriguez, has caused in the entire crew of the Huáscar Monitor, whom I have had the opportunity to see disappear, fulfilling their duty to the last, and also recommend for consideration the courage, enthusiasm, and serenity that during this unequal combat distinguished the officers and other crew members of the Huáscar.
With the Huáscar in the power of the Chilean squadron, the war will continue on land, putting an end to this stage of the War of the Pacific. Now available for sale, the Huáscar Monitor and the Cochrane frigate in 3D versions for printing and digital edition, which you will find on the 3D export platform. In the description, you will find a link to buy them directly at 3D Export. If you liked this video, give it a like and share this material. Subscribe to see more videos like this and support audiovisual projects about the War of the Pacific and more events in the history of Latin America. Thank you very much and see you on next video.